Don't expect a real seat, you're just the broke one. My mom snapped as I walked into the party. My sister smirked, careful, she might try to pay with coupons. Everyone laughed, until her boss, sitting 2 chairs away, searched my name on his phone. His jaw dropped. The table went dead silent. My name is Jessica, and I'm 28 years old. I have a complicated relationship with my family, particularly my mom Patricia and my younger sister Amanda, who's 25. Growing up, I was always the weird kid who was more interested in computers than clothes, coding instead of cheerleading. My mom made it clear from early on that Amanda was her golden child, prettier, more social, everything she wanted in a daughter. When I graduated high school, I got a full scholarship to study computer science at MIT. You'd think my family would be proud, right? Wrong. My mom was actually upset that I was abandoning the family and moving so far away. She kept saying things like, why can't you just go to community college like normal girls? Meanwhile, Amanda went to the local state university to study communications, and Mom couldn't stop bragging about how Amanda was staying close to family values. During college, I worked my butt off. I had internships at Google and Microsoft, graduated summa cum laude, and landed a job at a major tech company in Silicon Valley straight out of college. But every time I called home excited about an achievement, Mom would somehow turn the conversation back to Amanda, her new boyfriend, her sorority, or plans to become an influencer. After graduation, I moved to California and threw myself into work. I lived modestly for the first few years, saving every penny and investing wisely. I drove a beat-up Honda Civic, lived in a tiny studio apartment, and wore the same 3 outfits to work on rotation. My family saw this and concluded I was struggling financially. They had no idea that I was actually making 6 figures and building a substantial investment portfolio. The narrative that I was the poor sister became family lore. Every holiday, every family gathering, there would be comments about my situation. Mom would stage whisper to relatives about how I was still figuring things out while Amanda had really found her path, which, for the record, consisted of living at home, working part-time at a boutique, and dating a series of guys who my parents bankrolled. 3 years ago, I co-founded a startup with 2 MIT classmates. We developed AI-powered logistics software that revolutionized supply chain management. It was incredibly niche and technical, not something you'd read about in People magazine, but it was groundbreaking in our industry. We worked 80-hour weeks for 2 years, living on ramen and coffee, pouring everything into this company. Last year, our startup was acquired by Amazon for $340 million. My share was $85 million. Overnight, I went from struggling tech worker to multimillionaire. But here's the thing, I didn't tell my family. Not because I'm secretive, but because I'd learned over the years that sharing good news with them just led to them finding ways to diminish it or make it about Amanda somehow. I did upgrade my lifestyle somewhat. I bought a beautiful house in Palo Alto, got a Tesla Model S, and started dressing better. But when I visited home, I still drove my old Honda and dressed down. Why? Because I'd grown tired of their attitude and honestly, I wanted to see how long they'd keep treating me like the family failure. The setup: 2 months ago, Amanda got engaged to her boyfriend Derek. Derek's a nice enough guy, he works in sales for a mid-sized company and makes decent money, around $75,000 a year. Nothing wrong with that, but the way my family talked, you'd think he was Bill Gates. Mom immediately started planning this elaborate engagement party, inviting everyone we've ever known. When Mom called to invite me, the conversation went like this: Mom, Jessica, Amanda's engagement party is on Saturday the 15th. It's going to be at the Riverside Country Club. Me, that sounds lovely. I'll be there. Mom, now, I need to be honest with you about something. This is a very upscale event, and there's a dress code. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. Me, what kind of dress code? Mom, cocktail attire. And Jessica, if you can't afford something appropriate, I can lend you money for a dress. I just don't want you showing up in those casual clothes you usually wear. I bit my tongue. Thanks, Mom. I'll figure something out. Mom, also, I should mention that Derek's boss will be there. He's a very important businessman, and Amanda wants to make a good impression. So please, just try to blend in and not draw attention to your situation. My situation? As if being successful in tech was some kind of embarrassing medical condition. The party was set for 7 p.m. on a Saturday. I decided this was the night I was done hiding who I'd become. I went shopping and bought a stunning black cocktail dress by Diane von Furstenberg, $800, which I could now afford without thinking twice. I got my hair and makeup done professionally, and I put on the diamond earrings I bought myself after the acquisition, a little $15,000 treat that I'd never worn around family. I pulled up to the country club in my Tesla. I'd driven it down from San Francisco specifically for this night. As I walked into the venue, I could feel eyes on me. I looked good, and I knew it. The party was in full swing. About 60 people were there, family, friends, Derek's colleagues, and various social connections my mom had cultivated over the years. Amanda looked beautiful in a white dress, glowing with happiness. For a moment, I felt genuinely happy for her. Despite everything, she's still my sister. I spotted my mom across the room talking to a group of her friends. She saw me and her expression immediately shifted. She excused herself and walked over with a look I recognized from childhood, the look that meant I was about to be scolded. "Jessica," she said, giving me a once-over. "You look different." "Thanks, Mom. You look great too." She leaned in closer. "Where did you get that dress? And those earrings?" Her voice had a suspicious edge. "I bought them." "With what money?" "Jessica, please tell me you didn't put yourself into debt for this party. Amanda would feel terrible if she thought you were struggling even more because of her engagement." I took a deep breath. "I'm not in debt, Mom." She looked skeptical but was interrupted by Amanda bouncing over with Derek in tow. "Jess, you made it." Amanda hugged me, and for a second, it felt like old times. Then she stepped back and looked me up and down. "Wow, you really dressed up. This must have cost. Well, I hope you can still make rent this month." Derek looked embarrassed. "Amanda, don't, what?" "I'm just being realistic. We all know Jess is still figuring out her finances," she said it with a sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes. The dinner. When it came time for dinner, everyone moved to the main dining room. There were 6 round tables set up, each seating 10 people. I followed the crowd, looking for my assigned seat. Mom intercepted me. "Jessica, about your seating." I found my name card. I was at table 6, the table closest to the kitchen, furthest from the head table where Amanda, Derek, and the VIPs were sitting. Looking around, I realized table 6 was where they'd put the miscellaneous guests, some distant cousins, a few of Derek's college buddies, and Derek's elderly aunt who was hard of hearing. But that's not what made my blood boil. What made me angry was that there were only 9 chairs at table 6, and mine was clearly a folding chair that had been added as an afterthought. Everyone else had the nice upholstered chairs that matched the venue's elegant decor. Mom noticed me staring. "Now, Jessica, don't make a scene. We had to make some adjustments with the seating arrangements." "Why is my chair different from everyone else's?" She lowered her voice. "Because we had to add an extra seat at the last minute, and, well, we figured you'd understand. It's just practical." "You figured I'd understand what, exactly?" Mom's voice got that sharp edge it always had when she was about to say something cutting. "Don't expect a real seat when you're just the broke one in the family, Jessica. We can't all have the same accommodations." Her words hit me like a slap. Around us, conversations continued, but I felt like everyone was watching. Amanda appeared at Mom's shoulder, having overheard. "Mom's right, Jess. I mean, we love you, but we had to prioritize seating for Derek's business contacts and people who are in a position to give nice gifts." Amanda's smirk was subtle but unmistakable. "Careful though, she might try to pay with coupons." The comment was loud enough that several people nearby heard it. Laughter rippled through the immediate area. Not malicious laughter, but the kind of awkward chuckling people do when someone makes a joke that's a little too harsh but they don't want to seem uptight. I felt my face flush with humiliation and anger. But I kept my composure. "Interesting perspective," was all I said. I took my seat at the folding chair and tried to focus on the dinner conversation at my table. Derek's college friends were actually pretty nice guys, and his elderly aunt turned out to be a retired math teacher with fascinating stories. But I kept catching glimpses of the head table, where Derek's boss, a distinguished man in his 50s, was holding court. The awkward dinner conversation. As I sat at my folding chair, trying to make the best of the situation, I couldn't help but overhear conversations from the other tables. At table 2, I could hear Mom loudly explaining to some family friends about Amanda's brilliant career trajectory and how Derek was such a catch with his sales job. "Amanda has always been so focused and ambitious," Mom was saying. "She really knows how to network and make connections. Not like some people who just hide behind computers all day." The dig was clearly meant for me, even though she was speaking to people 3 tables away. I felt my jaw clench, but Derek's elderly aunt, Muriel, patted my hand. "Don't let them get to you, dear," she whispered. "I've been watching this family dynamic all evening, and frankly, it's appalling how they treat you." I was surprised by her directness. "It's okay, really. I'm used to it." "Well, you shouldn't be. I raised 4 children, and let me tell you something, the quiet ones are usually the ones accomplishing the most. They're just too busy succeeding to brag about it." Her words hit deeper than I expected. One of Derek's college friends, Mike, leaned in. "So Jessica, what do you actually do in tech? You mentioned something about logistics earlier." I glanced toward the head table, where Amanda was holding court about her latest Instagram collaboration with a local boutique. "I develop software that helps companies optimize their supply chains. Basically, I create systems that help businesses save money and run more efficiently." "That sounds incredible," said another friend, Jake. "Like, how much money are we talking about?" Before I could answer, I heard Amanda's voice carry over from the head table. "Oh, that's just Jessica trying to make her job sound important. She basically does data entry for some small company. The comment wasn't directed at our table, but it was loud enough that several people heard it. I felt my face flush with embarrassment and anger. Mike and Jake exchanged uncomfortable looks. Actually, I said, my voice carefully controlled, I don't do data entry. I designed artificial intelligence systems that can predict supply chain disruptions before they happen. It's quite complex, involving machine learning algorithms and predictive modeling. Aunt Muriel smiled. That sounds fascinating, dear. Tell us more. As I began explaining my work, really explaining it, not the watered-down version I usually gave my family, I noticed that people from neighboring tables had started listening in. My voice was carrying further than I realized, and the technical details of AI development seemed to captivate even people who had no background in technology. So you're saying you can predict when a shipping delay will happen before it actually happens? Asked a woman from table 5. In many cases, yes. Our algorithms analyze thousands of variables, weather patterns, traffic data, historical shipping routes, even social media sentiment that might indicate labor disputes. The AI can often predict disruptions days or even weeks in advance. That's like having a crystal ball for business, Mike said, genuinely impressed. More like having a really, really smart calculator, I laughed. But the impact is similar. Meanwhile, I could see Mom getting increasingly agitated at the head table. She kept glancing over at our animated discussion, clearly annoyed that attention was being diverted from Amanda's celebration. Finally, she stood up and walked over to our table. Jessica, she said in a voice that was trying to sound casual but had a sharp edge, you're being rather loud. This is Amanda's night, remember? I was just answering questions about my work, I replied evenly. Well, maybe save the technical talk for another time. People are here to celebrate Amanda and Derek, not to hear about your computer thing. The dismissal in her voice was so casual, so automatic, that it actually took my breath away. After all these years, she still couldn't even pretend to value what I did. Jake, bless him, spoke up. Actually, Mrs. Patterson, we were really interested in what Jessica was telling us. It sounds like cutting-edge stuff. Mom's smile became strained. I'm sure it's very nice, but, Mom. The voice came from behind her. Amanda had approached our table, looking slightly annoyed. What's going on over here? People keep looking this way. Your sister is just sharing about her job. I was trying to remind her that tonight is about you. Amanda looked at me with that familiar expression, part condescension, part annoyance. Jess, seriously? You're over here acting like some kind of tech guru? We all know you're just doing basic IT work. The conversation at nearby tables had quieted. People were now openly watching our family drama unfold. I'm not doing basic IT work, Amanda. I'm a software engineer specializing in artificial intelligence applications. Amanda laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. Come on, Jess. Don't oversell it. Derek told me you work for some tiny startup that probably won't even exist next year. Actually, the company I co-founded was acquired by Amazon last year, I said quietly. The words hung in the air. Amanda's expression shifted from amusement to confusion. What do you mean, acquired? I mean Amazon bought our company. For a significant amount. Mom was staring at me now. Jessica, what are you talking about? You drive that old Honda, you wear the same clothes. Because I choose to. Because I don't need to prove my worth through material possessions. But if Amazon really bought your company, you'd have money. Real money. Before I could respond, Amanda scoffed. Mom, she's obviously exaggerating. If Jessica had real money, don't you think we'd know about it? Why would you know about it? I asked. When was the last time any of you asked about my life without immediately changing the subject or making a joke about my finances? The question hung in the air. Around us, other guests were pretending not to listen while obviously hanging on every word. Jessica, don't make a scene, Mom hissed. I'm not making a scene. I'm just tired of being treated like the family failure when you don't actually know anything about my life. Derek had now joined the group around our table, looking increasingly uncomfortable. Maybe we should. No, it's fine, Amanda interrupted. Let Jessica tell us all about her big Amazon deal. I'm sure it's totally real and not at all exaggerated. The sarcasm in her voice was unmistakable. I looked around at the faces surrounding me, my mother's skeptical expression, Amanda's smirk, Derek's discomfort, and the curious faces of the other guests who had been drawn into our family drama. You know what? I said, standing up from my folding chair. Forget it. This is exactly why I don't share things with this family. Oh, come on, Jess, Amanda said. Don't be dramatic. We're just asking for details because what you're saying sounds unlikely. Unlikely. Well, yeah. I mean, you're sitting at the overflow table on a folding chair. If you really had Amazon money, wouldn't you be? I don't know, different? Different how? More successful looking? More confident? I mean, look at Derek's boss over there, you can tell he's important just by how he carries himself. I followed her gaze to the head table, where a distinguished man in an expensive suit was engaged in animated conversation with Derek's parents. He looked polished, professional, exactly what most people picture when they think of business success. So success is only valid if it looks like what you expect it to look like? I'm just saying, successful people usually show it. The conversation was spiraling into territory I'd been trying to avoid for months. Part of me wanted to pull out my phone and show them my bank balance, my LinkedIn profile, the news articles about our acquisition. But another part of me was tired of having to prove myself to people who should have believed in me from the start. The revelation. About halfway through dinner, Derek stood up to make a toast. He thanked everyone for coming, talked about how much Amanda meant to him, and made some sweet comments about their future together. Then he specifically thanked his boss, Mr. Richard Harrison, for being there and for being such a mentor. Richard Harrison. The name was familiar, but I couldn't place it immediately. Then Derek continued, Mr. Harrison is the regional vice president at Morrison & Associates, one of the top logistics consulting firms in the country. He's been incredibly supportive of my career, and having him here tonight means the world to us. Morrison & Associates. My blood ran cold. That was one of our biggest clients. They'd been using our AI software for the past 18 months, and it had revolutionized their operations. I personally presented our solutions to their executive team multiple times via video conference, but I'd never met any of them in person. I watched as Mr. Harrison smiled and waved at the applause. He was sitting just 2 chairs away from where Mom was at the head table. I could see him clearly, and suddenly I realized why his name was familiar. He'd been in several email chains I'd received about the Morrison & Associates account. He'd specifically praised our software in company-wide emails that our sales team had forwarded to us. As Derek's toast ended and conversations resumed, I noticed Mr. Harrison had pulled out his phone. From my angle, I could see that he was looking at LinkedIn. He seemed to be searching for something. Then I saw him type my name. My full name is Jessica Marie Chen Wang. I'm half Chinese on my father's side, a detail that somehow never gets mentioned in my family's narratives about me. On LinkedIn, my profile is comprehensive. It lists me as co-founder and CTO of the startup that Amazon acquired. It mentions the acquisition without specific numbers, but describes it as a significant strategic acquisition. My profile picture is professional, very different from how I looked in my casual clothes at family gatherings. I watched Mr. Harrison's face as he found my profile. His expression changed dramatically. His eyebrows shot up, and he leaned forward to read more carefully. Then he looked across the room, scanning until his eyes found me. Our eyes met across the room, and I saw recognition dawn on his face. He looked back at his phone, then at me again. His jaw literally dropped. The change in his demeanor was immediate and obvious. He stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. The sudden movement caught the attention of everyone at the head table. Excuse me, he said loudly enough that conversations at nearby tables paused. Is there a Jessica Chen Wang here tonight? The room got quieter. Mom looked confused and slightly annoyed at the interruption. That's my daughter Jessica, but, the Jessica Chen Wang? Co-founder of Innovate Tech Solutions? I stood up slowly. That's me, Mr. Harrison. The silence that followed was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in that room. Mr. Harrison started walking toward me, weaving between tables. Ms. Chen Wang, I cannot believe this. You're the genius behind the software that transformed our entire operation. Do you have any idea how much money your system has saved Morrison & Associates? He reached my table and extended his hand. Richard Harrison, Regional VP at Morrison & Associates. We've exchanged emails, but I had no idea. You're Derek's soon-to-be sister-in-law? I shook his hand. Nice to finally meet you in person, Mr. Harrison. And yes, Amanda is my sister. The fallout. Mr. Harrison turned to address the room, his voice carrying easily in the silence. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to tell you something extraordinary. This woman, he gestured to me, created software that has revolutionized logistics management. Her company was acquired by Amazon for a sum that I'm told was in the hundreds of millions. She's one of the most brilliant minds in tech today. The silence stretched on. I could see Mom's face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror. Amanda's mouth was hanging open. Mr. Harrison continued, Ms. Chen Wang, I've been hoping to meet you in person. Your software has increased our efficiency by 40% and saved us over $50 million in operational costs just this year. You're a legend in our industry. Derek, bless him, was the first to recover. Jessica, is this true? I nodded. The acquisition happened about a year ago. Why didn't you tell us? This came from Mom, her voice small and confused. I looked at her, then at Amanda, then at the folding chair I'd been assigned. When was the last time anyone in this family asked me about my work? When was the last time anyone showed interest in my life beyond making jokes about my financial situation? The room was still dead silent, but now people were pulling out their own phones. I could see them Googling my name, finding articles about the acquisition, about our technology, about the industry recognition I'd received. Mr. Harrison was still standing next to my table. Ms. Chen Wang, would you do me the honor of sitting at our table? I'd love to discuss some ideas I have for expanding our partnership. I looked at the head table, then at my folding chair. Actually, Mr. Harrison, I'm perfectly comfortable here. These are lovely people. Derek's college friends were grinning at the turn of events, and his aunt was patting my arm proudly. But Mr. Harrison wasn't done. He raised his voice again. I have to ask, who planned the seating for tonight? Because putting one of the most successful entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley at the kids' table seems like a significant oversight. More silence. Then one of Derek's friends at my table started laughing. Dude, Jessica's been telling us about optimizing supply chains for the last hour, and we thought she was just really into logistics. The laughter broke some of the tension, but the damage was done. Everyone was now Googling me, finding my Forbes interview from 6 months ago, my TechCrunch profile, the MIT Alumni Magazine article about successful female entrepreneurs. The aftermath. The party continued, but the entire dynamic had shifted. Instead of being ignored, I found myself surrounded by people wanting to talk to me. Derek's business colleagues, family friends who worked in corporate settings, even some of Mom's society friends who suddenly found my tech thing fascinating. Mom kept trying to approach me, but every time she got close, someone else would intercept me with questions about entrepreneurship, investment strategies, or the tech industry. I could see her getting increasingly frustrated. Amanda, meanwhile, had gone quiet. She was still the star of the evening, it was her engagement party, after all, but the narrative had changed. Instead of being the successful sister with a struggling sibling, she was now the one whose sister was a multimillionaire entrepreneur. About an hour later, I decided I'd made my point. I found Derek and gave him a genuine hug. Congratulations, Derek. I'm really happy for you both. Jessica, I'm sorry about how you've been treated. I had no idea. It's not your fault. You've always been kind to me. I found Amanda near the bar. She looked like she'd been crying. Amanda, today is your day. You look beautiful, Derek adores you, and you should be celebrating. I hugged her. I love you, you know. I always have. But I said those things about. And the coupon joke. God, Jessica, you must think I'm such a bitch. I think you're my little sister who's been influenced by some toxic family dynamics. But that doesn't change the fact that I want you to be happy. Finally, I approached Mom. She was standing alone by the window, looking out at the country club's golf course. Mom. She turned to me, and I could see she'd been crying. Jessica, I don't understand. Why didn't you tell us? Because every time I tried to share something I was proud of, it got minimized or ignored. Because every family gathering became about my failures and Amanda's successes. Because I got tired of being treated like the family disappointment. But we never meant. I thought you were struggling. You drive that old car, you dress so casually. I drive that old car because it's reliable and I don't need to impress anyone. I dress casually because I work in tech, where results matter more than appearance. And I kept quiet about my success because I wanted to see if anyone in this family loved me for who I am, not what I've achieved. Mom was quiet for a long moment. I failed you, didn't I? I sighed. Mom, you have 2 daughters. You've spent so much energy making one of us feel special that you made the other feel invisible. That's not sustainable for a family. Can we fix this? I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the critical, dismissive mother I'd been dealing with for years, but a woman who realized she'd made some serious mistakes. We can try, I said. But it's going to require some real changes in how this family operates. The investigation. What happened next was like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. After Mr. Harrison's announcement, the room erupted into hushed conversations as people pulled out their phones. I could hear fragments of whispered exchanges. Is she really? Google says Amazon acquisition. Look at this Forbes article. $35 million. The number floating around was wrong, it was actually much higher, but I wasn't about to correct anyone. The damage to my family's narrative was already complete. Mom had gone pale and sat down heavily in her chair. She kept looking at me like I was a stranger. Amanda, meanwhile, had disappeared entirely. I later learned she'd gone to the bathroom to have what she called a complete emotional breakdown. Derek was trying to manage the situation with admirable grace. Well, he said with a nervous laugh, I guess we're all learning new things about the family tonight. Mr. Harrison was still standing near my table, and he wasn't done. Ms. Chen Wang, I have to ask, are you currently taking on any consulting projects? Because I've been trying to get a meeting with your team for months. I do some consulting work, I replied carefully. Though I'm quite selective about projects. Of course. Someone of your caliber would be. He pulled out his business card. Would you consider having lunch next week? I have some ideas that I think would be perfect for your expertise. I could feel every eye in the room on us. This wasn't just about the money anymore, it was about respect, recognition, the kind of professional acknowledgement I'd been craving from my family for years, now happening in front of everyone. I'd be happy to discuss it, I said, accepting his card. As Mr. Harrison returned to his table, the whispered conversations continued. I noticed several people approaching the head table, clearly asking Mom and Amanda questions. From their expressions, my family was having a very difficult time explaining how they'd managed to so thoroughly misunderstand my situation. Derek's father, a usually quiet man who ran a small accounting firm, came over to my table. Jessica, I owe you an apology. I've been in business for 30 years, and I should have recognized success when I saw it. The way your family talked about you. Well, it didn't match what I observed. What do you mean? The way you talk about complex problems, the confidence you have when discussing technology, even the way you handle yourself in social situations. These aren't the traits of someone who's struggling. I should have asked more questions instead of accepting assumptions. His words meant more to me than he could know. Here was someone who barely knew me, but had been paying enough attention to see through the family narrative. The confrontation. About an hour after Mr. Harrison's revelation, Mom finally approached me. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in the span of an evening. Jessica, we need to talk. Do we? Please. Can we go somewhere private? I followed her to a quiet corner of the venue, near the windows overlooking the golf course. For a moment, we just stood there in silence. Why? She finally asked. Why what? Why didn't you tell us? Why did you let us think? Why did you let us treat you like? Like what, Mom? Like the family disappointment? Like the sister who couldn't get her life together? Mom's eyes filled with tears. We never meant to make you feel that way. Didn't you? Because every conversation we've had for the past 5 years has included some comment about my finances, my lifestyle, my inability to settle down like Amanda. But we were worried about you. You seem to be struggling. I seem to be struggling because I didn't feel the need to broadcast my success to people who had already decided I was a failure. When I tried to share good news, it got minimized. When I talked about my work, you changed the subject. So I stopped trying. Mom was quiet for a long moment. The folding chair. The folding chair was just the final straw. But it was symbolic of how I've been treated for years. Amanda gets the spotlight, the encouragement, the benefit of the doubt. I get the folding chair and jokes about coupons. I don't understand. If you've been successful all along, why live so modestly? Why not show us? Because I wanted to see if anyone in this family loved me for who I am, not what I've achieved. And honestly, I wanted to see how far the disrespect would go. The words came out harsher than I'd intended, but they were true. There had been a part of me that was curious, almost scientifically curious, about how my family would treat someone they perceived as unsuccessful. Tonight was your answer, Mom said quietly. Tonight was my answer. We stood in silence for another moment. Through the window, I could see other guests on the terrace, some of them clearly discussing the evening's revelations. I failed you, Mom said finally. As a mother, I completely failed you. I wanted to argue with her, to make her feel better, but I couldn't. She was right. Mom, Amanda is a lovely person. She's creative, social, and she has real talents. But you've spent so much energy building her up that you've torn me down in the process. And it's damaged all of our relationships. I thought you were stronger. You were always so independent, so self-sufficient. Amanda seemed to need more support. Everyone needs support, Mom. Everyone needs to feel valued by their family. What can I do? How do I fix this? I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw genuine remorse. It wasn't enough to undo years of damage, but it was a start. You can start by seeing me. The real me. Not the version of me that exists in your head, but who I actually am. What I actually do. What I've actually accomplished. I want to try. And you can apologize to me. In front of everyone. Because what happened tonight, the seating, the comments, the dismissiveness, that was humiliating. And I deserve better from my own mother. Mom nodded, tears flowing freely now. You do. You absolutely do. The apology. When we returned to the main room, the party was winding down, but most people were still there. Mom walked to the microphone that Derek had used for his earlier toast. Excuse me, she said, her voice shaky but determined. Could I have everyone's attention for a moment? The room quieted down, though I could sense people's curiosity about what would happen next. I need to make an apology, Mom continued. Tonight, I learned that I have profoundly misjudged my daughter Jessica. I made assumptions about her life and her success based on my own narrow understanding of what success looks like. She found me in the crowd. Jessica, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for underestimating you, for dismissing your achievements, and for treating you as less than the remarkable woman you are. You deserve better from me, and I intend to do better going forward. The room was silent. This level of public vulnerability from my typically proud mother was unprecedented. I also want to say that I'm incredibly proud of what you've accomplished. Building a company that Amazon wanted to acquire. That's extraordinary. And I'm ashamed that I didn't know about it, didn't celebrate it, didn't support you the way a mother should. She paused, gathering herself. So to everyone here tonight, please know that Jessica is an accomplished entrepreneur and tech innovator. She's brilliant, successful, and I'm lucky to be her mother, even if I haven't acted like it. When she finished, the applause was immediate and genuine. But more than that, I could see the shift in how people were looking at me. Not with pity or curiosity, but with respect. Amanda appeared at my side as the applause died down. She'd clearly been crying, and she looked younger somehow, more vulnerable than I'd seen her in years. Jess, I'm so sorry. I don't even know where to start apologizing. I hugged her. Start with not making assumptions about people's lives. I was such a bitch. The coupon comment, the seating arrangement. God, I helped plan that seating arrangement. I know. I was jealous, she admitted. Even thinking you were struggling, I was jealous of how smart you are, how independent. And when I found out tonight how successful you actually are, it made me realize how small I've been. It was the most honest conversation Amanda and I had ever had. Amanda, you're not small. You have so many talents, so much potential. But you've been living in a bubble where success is measured by very narrow standards. I want to do better. With my life, with our relationship, with everything. Then do better. Start your own thing. Take risks. Stop waiting for other people to validate your choices. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Will you help me? I know I have no right to ask after tonight, but, of course I'll help you. You're my sister. I wish I could say that everything changed overnight, but real life isn't that neat. The engagement party was a turning point, but rebuilding family relationships takes time. Mom and I started having regular phone calls, real conversations where she asks about my work and I share what's happening in my life. She's made a genuine effort to understand my industry and has even read some articles about female entrepreneurs to better relate to my experiences. Amanda and I are closer than we've been in years. The engagement party shock forced her to examine some of her own attitudes and behaviors. She started her own small business, a social media consulting firm, and often calls me for advice. She's actually quite good at it, and I've been able to help her make some valuable connections. Derek and Amanda got married 3 months ago. This time, I was seated at the family table, and I gave a heartfelt speech about both of them. Amanda asked me to be her maid of honor, which felt like a genuine gesture of reconciliation. The most surprising development has been my relationship with Mr. Harrison and Morrison and Associates. Our casual conversation at the engagement party led to a consulting contract worth $2.3 million annually. I now advise them on digital transformation strategies, and it's some of the most satisfying work I've done. I also finally told my family the real numbers from the acquisition. Mom's reaction was priceless. She literally sat down and fanned herself with her napkin. But more importantly, the revelation led to honest conversations about money, success, and family expectations that we should have had years ago. Reflections. Looking back, I realize I played a role in this whole situation too. By hiding my success, I enabled the family dynamic that had hurt me for so long. I was so focused on proving that I didn't need their validation that I forgot they couldn't celebrate achievements they didn't know existed. But I also learned something important. You can't force people to respect you, but you can stop accepting disrespect. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop playing by rules that weren't designed for your success. The folding chair became a symbol in our family now, not of exclusion, but of assumptions we made about each other. Mom actually kept it in her garage for a while as a reminder, though I finally convinced her to donate it to charity. Amanda sent me a text last week that said, "Remember when I thought you might pay with coupons? Turns out you could have bought the whole restaurant." We laughed about it, but there was an understanding beneath the humor. We both knew how much had changed. The real victory. The petty part of me enjoyed watching everyone's faces when they realized who I really was. But the real victory wasn't in their shock or embarrassment. The real victory was in reclaiming my narrative and demanding better treatment from the people who should have been supporting me all along. I'm still the same person I was before that party. I still prefer coding to cocktail parties, still drive my old Honda sometimes just because I like it, still think the best conversations happen over pizza at 2 a.m. while debugging code. But now my family sees and values those parts of me too. And Derek's boss? Mr. Harrison has become a real mentor and friend. He often says that engagement party was one of the best networking events he's ever attended, even though he had no idea he was networking. Final thoughts. To anyone dealing with family members who consistently underestimate or dismiss you, you don't owe anyone proof of your worth, but you do owe yourself the respect of not accepting poor treatment. Sometimes you have to be willing to walk away from the table, even if it's just a folding chair at the kids' table, to make people realize what they're losing. And to the families out there, ask your quiet relatives what they're working on. Listen to their answers. Celebrate their successes. You might be surprised by what you learn. That folding chair taught me something important. The seat at the table isn't what matters. What matters is having people who want you there, who value your presence, who see your worth. I'm grateful that my family finally learned that lesson too, even if it took a very public reality check to get there. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well, and letting people discover exactly how well you've been living all along. TLDR, family treated me like the broke failure while golden child's sister got all the praise. At sister's engagement party, they literally gave me a folding chair and made jokes about me paying with coupons. Sister's fiancé's boss happened to be there, Googled my name, and discovered I'm a multimillionaire tech entrepreneur whose software saves his company millions. Awkward silence ensued. Family relationships are slowly healing, but damn, that moment of recognition was sweet. Edit. A lot of people are asking about the specific software we developed. Without giving away proprietary information, I can say it uses machine learning algorithms to predict supply chain disruptions and optimize routing in real time. Think of it as giving computers the ability to see into the future of logistics and make adjustments before problems happen. It's incredibly nerdy and incredibly lucrative. Edit 2. Yes, I'm aware that I could have handled this situation differently. No, I don't regret the way things played out. Sometimes shock therapy is the only thing that works on deeply entrenched family dynamics. And yes, Amanda and I are genuinely close now. We're planning a sister's trip to Japan next spring. Edit 3. To everyone asking about investment advice, I'm not a financial advisor, just someone who got lucky with timing and had some good mentors. The real advice I give is to invest in yourself first: education, skills, relationships. The money follows from there. Thanks for reading, Reddit. Sometimes the best stories are the ones where everyone learns something in the end.